item on the agenda is to review and act on Article 14, the citizens petition regarding polystyrene. Ramesh Razdan will be present to discuss.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity back. I think this is your favorite topic that we started with last year. So I hope you keep us with things. So I think we came back last time I was here was during the summer, and you gave us a feedback saying, hey, work through the towns and get some feedback and come back with some recommendations. So we did that. We had mixed success in terms of reaching out some towns and not reaching out. So based on the feedback, what we actually submitted is a revised petition that we sent, I think, 3-4 weeks back. Yes. I think we had shared with other experts as well. Yes. So I can summarize what we actually did. There are fundamentally, and I try to summarize that in the email as well, which you have, is it is basically a copy and paste of a bag ban, because we wanted to be less stringent on the town, but we also looked at Somerville, how they have defined it. So Somerville, from a terms and conditions standpoint, bag ban as the basis of our process. So that's you can look at that, the two things. But three things that you had, that Board of Health and we had concerns in the town that we actually worked on, that we addressed. We believe we have addressed, but welcome for the feedback. I think the first one was enforcement. We don't have enough number of people. How do we actually enforce it? So we have left it open in terms of whether it's Board of Health or Board of Selectmen. Like this plastic ban, it is open for the town to decide how they want to enforce it. More loose than what we were previously, because we were previously saying that Board of Health had to do that. The second was related to food permit. I think was feedback that, hey, food permit should not be penalized, so we have taken that off. Like a plastic bag ban, the food permit is not linked to the styrofoam anymore. I think the third part we did is about the deferment. If the business is having some challenges, who decides that, how to defer it? And again, we took it away from Board of Health. We made it more of a general, as the town decides whether Board of Health or Board of Selectmen. We're not experts in defining that. We left it for the town to decide. So those are the high-level things. What we have done since is we have gotten 100 signatures. We have submitted to the town. We're excited about the opportunity, because last time it was very close, and these young men are really looking forward that town actually adopts it. And I think we're looking for your feedback and partnership. How do we actually take it forward? Because we do believe it's the right thing for the Shrewsbury to be doing. I'll stop here. I think that's a summary of where we are. And I hope you have an opportunity. I know we're shared with Phil as well and other experts to get their opinion. We have not gotten anything. This is our will. This is our thinking so far.
Okay. Yeah, it seems to me that the revised warrant article, it looks a lot like the proposed House Bill 3252. Because I checked that out online, and it's not identical, but it looks a lot like it. And,
okay.
And that it's more generalized. And it is, as you say, it takes away some of a lot of the stringency in terms of how it's enforced. But I would also like if the Worcester Division of Public Health has had a chance to look at this, and if you have any thoughts, comments in terms of how it would be enforced, or if it causes you any issues.
Who's emailing me?
Me. Yeah. That's me. During your summer vacation. Sorry
yes.
Sorry for interrupting that.
So basically, our initial concern was they tied it to the annual food permit.
Right.
So they've taken that out. The key with this is education up front, and then your definitions have to be clear. So under the prepared foods, they did, and this was in it prior, where prepared food does not include any raw, uncooked meats, fish, or eggs. So that's if you go to a supermarket, very often you're going to have it in the styrofoam so it doesn't leak through. There's other purposes, durability. So that was in the original one,
yeah.
But that's important because that's the kind of things folks are going to ask us. They did put under director, so they kept it where it's either public health or town manager, like the plastic bag ban came under the town manager's office, and I haven't really heard of any real issues with that. I think the upfront and the time lag, that's very important, which in here you don't really state, okay, effective 2020. So if it passes town meeting, you'll have a year up front to give folks an opportunity to make adjustments in their ordering. I know that the school department had some concerns. Again, cost is a factor. And then we did get some feedback that even though you might go to a different material, you know, polystyrene in general isn't really you can't really capture that through recycling.
Right. Yeah.
The cost is very prohibitive to just transport it because it's so light. So if you go to a compostable material, a lot of that stuff's still going to end up in the waste stream. So people should understand you're taking away from a polystyrene. You're going to go into either a fiber product, which could come from recyclable fibers. Again, it has to be food grade. I mean, Whole Foods, a lot of, thinking of Birch Bread. I mean, you go to a lot of places that you don't get styrofoam. But your Asian restaurants or restaurants that do a lot of takeout, they do polystyrene. So the other part is soups. I know you can do soups without polystyrene, but takeout soups if you go get pho or any kind of soup. So the materials are out there. There's a cost factor, so just people understand. And then if you have this empty container, unless you directly compost yourself, and unless the town has a composting collection, which Shrewsbury doesn't, that's going to end up in the trash.
Anyway,
Similar to
you're
polystyrene.
in the trash anyways.
Yeah, so just so people understand, it's not going from one bin to another bin, it's just you're using a different type of material. So the way he's presented it, you got a year lead time. The town will have opportunity if the town body passes it for some upfront education. And it's like Brian says, it's the education piece upfront to everybody have an opportunity. And then I don't know if the business community has given you any feedback in particular about the cost to change over.
I think we had done some research last time. I think they can present some of that. Well, I believe 80% of the businesses were not using it. There were few that were using it. So Anish, you guys want to share what we are finding?
So what we did is first we contacted Shrewsbury businesses, and as he said, about 80% don't use them, and of the 20% that do, they use it in like minimal amounts, or they could possibly switch over. For example, like the examples for soup, Panera uses like those paper cups to carry out their soups. Those were the examples. And just to make sure that there's no costs after implementing, we contacted other towns with similar bans to Styrofoam, and a lot of them, everyone we contacted said that they were fine with the switch. And in fact, some companies like KFC said that they were pretty good with switching, and they're the ones who are using Styrofoam often.
Right. Like we've noticed that KFC is one of those like iconic like non-takeout restaurants perhaps that you would notice with a lot of Styrofoam. But when we contacted them, they seemed okay with it. And they were one of only like 5 or 6 of the businesses that we reached out to that said they use it more than like very infrequently. Mm-hmm. So, and since like they were one of the few businesses that used it frequently, we thought either like if it really became really prohibitive, like the town could decide to give them a deferment if it came down to it. But in like seeing as they were said that they were willing to do it and that they weren't going to be like super affected by it, we thought that pretty much no one would probably be hurt by it in Shrewsbury.
So that's important, all the work that they've done ahead. So I applaud you for doing the work. It's a good civics lesson also. And then coming back is also another good civics lesson because you're building consensus. So as it's presented, I don't have any opposition to what's presented.
Okay, so then it will come down to who is designated as the director. So I guess that could be either Public Health, Board of Health, which actually probably means Worcester Division of Public Health, I would imagine.
Yep, they left it.
Or the manager could take it on himself, or the selectman could appoint somebody. So,
Yeah.
I guess
the only thing with leaving it totally open is it's totally open.
Well, who does it for the plastic bags right now?
The
It
selectman's
comes in.
office, but I can tell you, I've gotten 2 complaints because anything to do with food usually comes to me. And there was a question about dry cleaning bags. That is an exception. And then there was there was one restaurant that was using plastic bags, but the grade of the bag was acceptable.
Yep. So
That's it.
But you've gotten those calls.
I've gotten all those calls, and that's been almost, what, a year now?
Oh,
2
good.
years, 2 years.
Yeah, good year.
It goes
yeah.
by fast. That's it. So I think it's been very
I like the
successful.
vagueness,
It's
but,
kind of.
but at the same time, somebody's got to
It's
be.
Vegas.
Yeah. Vegas, right.
Yeah, if
It's
we don't mind
great.
interjecting, so for specifically who was going to implement, we called other towns that did implement plastic bag bans
Yeah.
and found out who did enforce, just in case, because we talked about.
Well, that was the question, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
who was enforcing? A lot of people did say that their board of health was enforcing, with the addition of the food permits section that would be included, which we took out because we recognized Shrewsbury as a town was opposed to that. And then we kept it open just because there was the confusion of they wanted more people wanted it to be open, like the plastic bag ban, to allow the Shrewsbury government itself to appropriate who enforces. But our research did end up concluding that Board of Health.
Well, and my memory of
enforced
that
it. Yes.
discussion was trying to figure out the workload on the
The
food
Board of Health.
inspectors in
Right.
different
Yeah.
communities.
That's why we
Right.
ended up leaving it open, because we realized that it would be a huge burden if Board of Health were solely dependent on it. So
Right, if those food inspectors, Phil, usually,
It would be like any, when we do inspections, we're checking fire code, actually. So, for example, the hood cleaning requirement, which is fairly new, 5-6 years, we make sure that the certification is in or out. If it's out, we'll cite it, but then we refer them to the fire department, because that code lives over there.
Yeah.
Same thing like with ANSEL systems, fire suppressions. Sometimes it might be a building code. So we don't have jurisdiction definitely over it. So in this particular case, same thing with plastic bags. The plastic bags, a lot of that stuff, your retail, CVS, like a CVS, we go in once a year because they do sell some packaged products, but they're not preparing. So it's not something that I do know when you go to CVS, if you don't have your own bag, you're getting a paper bag. We've observed that. So in this case, letting them know up front, and then we're in the back room. So, we're looking at their single serve products a lot of times. And one of the things is, make sure they're not open, take out a sleeve at a time. And at that point, we would see Styrofoam, we would say, are you familiar, give them this, give them an opportunity.
so you're comfortable with that?
In those cases where we're doing it ancillary, if I'm saying it correctly, to an inspection, as opposed to we're going in
Specifically
to
going-
do that,
Yeah,
that's okay.
So,
I mean,
so,
we
the,
can,
so the monitoring aspect of this would be if during your routine food inspections you happen to notice something, you can inform the owner, and they have their first.
we always work
chance.
with the education piece.
Or there could be, I suppose, a complaint made by the public that goes to
Don't worry, it'll
that
come
goes
back.
And, on that, we would follow up. It might not be the priority run right outside,
Right,
but,
right.
we would note it
Yeah.
to
Okay.
check it. But I will refer back to the plastic bag. If you can do a rollout like the plastic bag rollout did, enough lead time, and you work with your community, your environmental community, again, you have your town website. It worked with, we haven't really had any with the plastic bag. Basically, people, it just it happened because of the lead time and the education. So I don't expect anything different here.
so then it sounds like we're comfortable if the Board of Health manages.
Well, again, I can't speak for Carrie, because that's where, the initial
You'll see my
intake.
weekly update.
But, the rollout with the plastic bag didn't necessarily fall, I don't think, on Carrie, so we
But
can
it
do
seems like
similar.
it still does.
Well, because we, the Board of Health licenses the food establishments, I can tell you Dan used me as an instrument to
Well, you
push
sit-
out that
Right.
information,
Yes.
but
Right.
that's okay, and we do
Yeah.
that as a courtesy.
Yeah.
When the pre-operational inspections happen with these new restaurants, we let them know, there's a bag ban. Here's the
Yes.
flyer, go
Yeah.
see the Board of Selectmen if you have questions.
So we would include that on the, like, for example, is this up for the special town meeting?
Yes, yes.
So if it does pass at the special, all our renewals are up for the end of the year.
Yep.
So we would,
Put it with
we
the-
put that right out, saying, you know, as of next year, you have a year to work on this. The other part that I find encouraging is your work that you've done with the surveying, saying that folks are already doing this. And so that's key. If his numbers, your numbers are telling me 20%
Yeah.
are the only ones doing it, there's a lot of work, but where they're saying 80% plus the ones that do, they only use partial.
Yeah.
That to me was really an encouraging piece of the legwork that they've done to make sense to us that will be implemented.
Right, so I guess.
Fairly
I
straightforward.
guess the last question I have is, in terms of food establishment, I assume that applies to the schools?
Yes.
And
Yes,
will that be a burden if the schools have a problem trying to do away with styrofoam?
Well, I can't speak for the school or the school committee or superintendent or the food services, but they would have an opportunity at town meeting, I would imagine, to express any concerns that they would have. They also would have the year to get their RFPs out when they buy product. Plus, you know, the businesses that supply, it's business to them. So, you know, volume makes your price points go down. And then,
Plus,
So-
there's a chance for a waiver too, or even a couple of
Yeah.
waivers, so if the schools.
they'd have
run
to
into
make a
problem-
case to,
Yeah.
they'd have to make a case.
Well, I'm
Okay.
curious, in the towns that you surveyed,
Yeah.
what did you find there?
Actually, just really quickly on the school's point, we did notice that this year the school has moved away from using styrofoam in their school lunches.
Okay.
The only thing that's left is the school actual tray, and that's probably the big part. But there's also like a lot of stuff that was being served, like the soups were served in styrofoam, Jello, that kind of stuff was used in styrofoam. That's all gone.
And they had like a big meeting about it a few months ago, I think, where like the school committee and like they discussed the idea, and they all like basically agreed that at least some level of styrofoam should be removed.
Yeah,
So
I
they've
think
already
what
taken the
has
first step.
happened is education, at least we lost, but there's been a general education
Yeah.
across the community, which has helped a lot. I think the
Okay.
town is actually already trying to do some of those things. I think school committee, I know I had listened to one of them, they had a task force, they had a workshop, I don't know whether that happened or not, we can follow up with them to see how they can implement, because school committee was in favor. I know there's a cost element which was trying to be figured out, but they have implemented some parts of it as they are already saying.
Yeah.
To address your question about how other schools have been implementing, what we saw is like either they use just the plastic trays that you would get at like a McDonald's or something, and then have the small paper cups to carry all the main food, which is what, like we said, the Shrewsbury schools are doing right now. Or they would use, like we talked about, the fiber trays, specifically the fiber plates, those things that can just go in the, like from recycled compost. So even if it goes in the trash, it's a little better for us to
Because it'll
use.
break down before.
And not only that, it removes the carcinogenic effect of.
Yeah, which was the main concern
Yeah.
with the styrofoam.
Okay,
Okay.
well, thank you very much for coming, I
problem.
really appreciate it. So at this point, obviously, the town meeting members will decide the issue, but at this point, it's just a matter of whether the Board of Health is going to basically support the article or not. So I guess we should take a vote to
Yep.
see if the Board of Health will recommend this article at town meeting. So I don't think we need a motion.
I don't think so.
We just, so in terms of discussion, it sounds like we're all pretty much on board with this.
Yeah, I think
In
the
terms of-
changes, I think those were the changes that,
Our major concerns were met. At this point, I think it really is up to town meeting,
Yep.
and they can deal with, if there's a school issue, then that can be dealt with at town meeting, so.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So I guess where the Board of Health is going to recommend this article at town
Thank
meeting.
you, I appreciate
Thank
it.
you for your time.
good job.
Yes.
Nice work.
Can you all sign in if you don't mind on the first sign in, please?
This one?
Or she'll chase you up. Yes, please. Yeah,
Okay, so
thank you, great job, guys, really
Yeah.
impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely.
So I guess the last item is to review our meeting schedule. in terms of our next regular Board of Health
Yes.
meeting.